So when the farmhand says she is the Moabite girl from Moab, he's saying, ugh, she's not a person. She's not even a woman. She's just a foreigner. So poor Ruth can't escape it. She is always being classified as this person who comes from some other place, who doesn't belong. She is Ruth, the refugee. And God knows that you and I can have the same feelings as this farmhand. Whenever we are confronted with people that we are afraid of or that we are unsure about, when we feel threatened in any way, we can talk and act like that. And you've heard the language before, right? Especially in the last few years, the way the media has talked about refugees. Refugees are scary. We don't want them here. Who are these people? What kinds of refugees? All refugees are terrorists. We villainize them. We distance ourselves from them. And even if you've never said those things out loud, even if you're not a political leader who controls borders, if we're honest with ourselves, and I know it's happened to me, that some of those feelings bubble up. Refugees, really? Like right here, right? Oh man, what's this all about? Meanwhile, God knows those bubbling feelings. God knows the way this is working out. So what he does from close to the very beginning is that he hardwires some clear instructions for his people when it comes to looking after those people that you wouldn't naturally look after. So let's back up the train here a little bit and take a quick peek at the book of Leviticus. By the way, you know that we're spending 14 weeks in the book of Leviticus in the new year, right? You've looked in your journal that far? Guys, you know what you're going to say to me after that series? You're going to say, Joe, that is the best and only series I've ever heard on the book of Leviticus. You're going to love it. So here's a bit of a sneak peek. It says this, furthermore, when you harvest the produce of your land, this is God talking, you are not to harvest all the way to the corners of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and the who? And the resident alien. I am the Lord your God. This is the law. This is the practice that Boaz is following here. He's leaving the edge of his property. He's leaving the scraps, the leftovers on the ground. Why? Because he is looking after those who are unable to look after themselves. And in doing so, he's honoring God, he's honoring the refugees, and he's honoring the poor. And he's doing it because looking after those in need is what God requires. So any time you hear anybody ever bad-mouthing the poor or refugees or they got themselves into this problem, it's not my problem, know that those words, those thoughts, those sentiments, those ideas are not godly. That's actually the opposite of what God wants for you and I and for them. Friends, I think that you and I are in danger of suffering from compassion fatigue, of overextending ourselves and drowning ourselves in legitimate needs or just tapping out saying, I'm done, I'm out, it's enough. And I think that Ruth's story is able to speak into that situation for us even now. Ruth's story is an acknowledgement that yes, our world is broken, and no, this isn't the way things are supposed to be. But our challenge in the middle of that trouble is to be keenly aware of the resident alien, of the broken pieces of our world, to look after the needs of our world, but to carefully balance those needs alongside our capabilities and our natural limits. Because here's the thing. If you are destroying yourself on the way to helping and looking after others, that's not what God wants for you. Or if your friends are sick and tired of your rants and guilt trips because you are forcing your convictions on them, God has no time for that. He's not interested in that. He's not asking that of you. Or if you become so zeroed in and consumed with whatever cause is before you at the expense of your health and your family, that's not what God wants either. So here's where I hope you can find some encouragement this morning. It's in this, that yes, participate in what God is up to, but remember at the same time, it's not all up to you. Just like in Ruth, these scriptures are acknowledging that things aren't the way they're supposed to be, that the world is broken and God actually knows it. But it's also a sign, it's part of the thread here, that God isn't just this lofty God who's far away, but he's a hands-on God who provides shelter for those who need refuge. And who needs refuge? Refugees. The Hebrew understanding peace isn't the absence of conflict. The Hebraic understanding of peace is that in the middle of whatever trouble or terror or famine or election season that you're in, God's goodness and God's presence is with you. Even if things are insane on the outside, you can have wholeness and completeness on the inside. So when Jesus tells this woman to go in peace, essentially he's saying, I'm here. I'm here. You don't have to worry. You don't have to be afraid. You are not alone. I'm here. Remember, as we said last week, that this whole episode, this whole story of Ruth is actually taking place in a time of famine. Yet in this story, Naomi and Ruth have their fill. They have everything they need and then some. And where does it come from? It comes from the gleanings. What are the gleanings actually? They're actually the leftovers. So God actually provides out of the leftovers. There is so much that God has. So much is available to us that we can get our fill and then some based on what's just at the outskirts. So think about that this morning. If you find yourself in a season of famine, or if it's a threatening season for you, is it possible for even you today to find your healing and refuge and hope and protection, deliverance and sustenance in the healing wings of Jesus right now, in the middle of the mess? And do you believe that God in his goodness and providence has so much for you that he can supply all your needs even out of the leftovers? So may this be an encouragement to you this morning, that our God is a God who provides in the middle of famine. Does that mean all the things on the outside are fixed and hunky-dory? Not always. But what it does mean is that you can have peace and wholeness and a sustained hope in the middle of whatever you find yourself in. And people might say to you, oh, things worked out for you. Oh, happenstance. Can you believe, oh, it was just out of sheer luck that happened to you. But you know better. You're the informed reader. You can see it from 30,000 feet and say, it might look that way to you, but I know that there's this thread. I know there's a God that guides my steps. I know that I have not been overlooked. I know that I have not been forgotten.